Hello and welcome to my world and a casual review. This time around, we're talking about Borderlands Game of the Year Edition. The version of which that I played is the one that's available on Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. So that is what I'm basing my opinions and thoughts on. Now, this wasn't my first time playing a Borderlands game. I've played Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, all on PC. I have played Tales from the Borderlands and New Tales from the Borderlands. I'm familiar enough with the franchise, but this was the first time I was playing the first game, granted the Game of the Year edition, on console. And in comparison to how I remember playing the Steam version, um, I was kind of surprised at how natural this game felt to play with a controller. Because the Steam version I played with a mouse and keyboard, and I certainly had my issues with it, as well as the Borderlands 2 and the pre sequels. That's a whole other thing to talk about, but the console version of Borderlands, or at least the Game of the Year edition, felt very natural to play. Maybe it's the button layout on the controller made more sense as opposed to a mouse and keyboard. I don't know what it was, but I had a lot more fun playing this than I did the Steam version. So take that for what it's worth. It is a very good game as a first-person shooter. You got your choice at the very beginning to pick one of four different types of characters. I myself went with Lilith, the Siren character, because most people know, given the choice, I'm going to choose to play as a female character anyway, because 99 times out of 100, they're the best version of a character choice to choose in any given game. And also, I remembered my original notes and build that I did from the Steam version, and that how over the powered she could be by level 40 if you put the skill points in the right spot. Even if you don't fill out like a full skill tree, which you cannot do by level 40 in this game, Lilith can be virtually unstoppable. Uh, but again, that's just my personal opinion based on two playthroughs, one on Steam and one on console. Visually, the shell shaded esque look of Borderlands actually holds up very well. It provides a nice little charm. Pandora, as depicted in the original game, can be rather plain and generic looking as a big old wasteland, as opposed to how it looks in Borderlands 2 and depicted in spin-off media. But for the first game in the franchise, it is what it is. It gets its point across that you're dealing with bandits. You got towns where people are set up to defend themselves. So there is a great sense of wonder and exploration. And what in this game, while being very linear, it is open world enough to where you can do things in almost any order that you want. Particularly since this was the Game of the Year edition that I was playing, and which meant the DLC areas like the Underdrome, the T-Bone Junction areas, for example, which ties in with the Crimson Lands General Knox expanded story. You get access to those nearly right off the bat. The second you get able to fast travel, it's not advised that you go to some of these areas straight away, but you know what, the option is available to you, and that ended up being the case. Because to my amazement, people were still playing it. I started to get my playthrough, and I intentionally set it to for it to be a public playthrough for the majority of the game of my experience, just to see if folks were actually available or dropping in, dropping out, and they were. I've had a number of folks join in. Some of them insisted that I go do that T-Bone Junction area first, just to get the Climax battle out of the way. To which I say, yeah, that ended up being a bit of a mistake because I was so under leveled. But it ended up working in the long run because spending several hours in those areas and knocking out that quest well before it was supposed to be knocked out meant by the time I got to the actual end game of the base story, which you're seeing in the footage here, um, I I was level 40. The enemies were like level 32, level 33, and I had some weapons that were basically tearing through them in pretty short order. So there is that big benefit to it. And again, the not to mention the co-op with folks dropping in, dropping out, and the end and the difficulty scaling based on the number of people taking part. Uh, Certainly made things a bit more interesting, and it provided a an additional experience. Otherwise, I was not going to get. Uh, but it was seamless. There was no lag, no like delay, like if someone joining the game. No, you get a you will get a notification at the top of the screen that says so and so is joining the game. The enemies of Pandora has gotten stronger, and if they left, it says like the enemies have gotten weaker. So you have uh you got those notifications. You got the warning that the things were about to get tougher. But at the same time, folks that were joining the game, my playthrough, were folks who, or at least one person says they put in like 400 something hours into it, and they just love going back into it to help people get through the Carmax battle, just so they can go and start farming that additional that legendary loot. Um, which is, hey, it made my experience unique and more positive, I have to say. So, of course, the negative is that you get some people who are not as objective focused, but at the very least, if folks are holding up the experience, you can easily kick them from your game, even if it's public. So there was one dude that I had to do that to 3 times in one night in the span of 10 minutes because they kept going off and holding up progression to a very very large degree. Let's see. Sound wise, all the weapons sound real good. It's like you get a nice variety of weapons too. But they all sound very distinct and different. So if you're swapping weapons, and because a couple weapons actually look similar, and almost every weapon that I picked will end up preferring to use all had a scope on it. So being able to hear the difference between the sniper rifles, the assault rifles, the SMGs, and the repeaters in particular ended up being quite useful when I was swapping weapons on the proverbial fly. Sound music wise, you get like the nice little action music that kicks in whenever you engage in combat, and it fades out naturally as well. You get and which leads to the combat. You get also a nice variety of of opponents here. You got your bandits, your skags. You got these little worm things, the spider ants, and you get a nice mix of boss battles as well. Perhaps my favorite, at least the hardest one, as it relates to my playthrough and my experience, was actually the Rack one, because it lasted to 90 seconds based on the weapons that I had. But that meant it lasted 3 times as long as the Facing the Destroyer. Matter of fact, that clip is here on YouTube. From the point it was like that boss battle ended up being like less than 30 seconds. So again, that's how easy or fair and balanced Borderlands can get based on your experience, your weapons, and even your build, what you build your character around. So definitely a lot of positives. If there is a bit of a negative, um, I would have to say the fact that you can jump into the DLC with sections completely underpowered and without really fair warning, it could make it a miserable experience. I do not recommend if you're playing it for the first time joining someone else's game who is a much higher power level than you, because the enemies will scale to them. Basically means you will get your face stomped in if you try to do anything. But you get the XP scale to an extent for any enemies that they take out. So it kind of works out in that regard. So best to host a game, make it public, and have people join in while you work on your journey, and they help and have them help you out along the way. So yeah, that would just about do it there. So well, again, my casual review, my thoughts, my opinions regarding Borderlands Game of the Year edition. So if you have your thoughts on this particular game, if you've played it recently, or if it's been years since you've played it, leave your thoughts and point of view in the comment section below. I would say like, comment, subscribe, but YouTube prefers it to be said within the first 30 seconds as opposed to the final minute of a video. But that's how I roll. I don't do what they tell me to do. So anyway, tighten your friendship bracelet, stay safe, have a good one, and we'll see y'all either live over on my Twitch channel or in the next video here on YouTube. Till then, bye.